Nissan advised the oil and filter be changed every 12,000 miles, though in arduous conditions this service should be performed more frequently. Before we do anything, we need to warm that engine oil up. So the idea behind getting the engine oil hot is that when we actually release that sump plug, it should rush out and bring most of the contaminants with it. So hopefully no heavy deposits are sat at the bottom of the sump. So I've taken the car out into a lovely Welsh valley here. So although it's cold, here's some beautiful scenery to look at while I warm this engine up. So then we've just got to get the car back into the garage, allow the oil just to cool a little bit because it will be dangerously hot at something like 100 degrees, so that is pretty hot. And then we can get on with the oil change. Now you should have slowed down here. That's a little bit fast for that puddle. Other than a trolley jack and some axle stands, you'll need the following to do an oil and filter change: a 14mm socket for the sump plug, oil filter removing tool, a torque wrench able to do 34 Nm and possibly 18, a suitable oil filter, 5.2 litres of 5W30 oil, and an oil catch container and some disposable gloves. So this is the oil I'll be using, which is some Xtrail 5W30, and that's a fully synthetic oil, meeting the requirements for Nissan. You'll also need a little bit extra, 200 millilitres, because it's 5.2 litres. And the oil filter I'll be popping on is a Bosch, and that's a P2024. They're quite a large filter and actually quite cheap. And that's the details on the side there. We'll also need a 14mm socket to remove that sump plug, and some form of oil filter removing tool. I'll be using the Facom C48-2, but we have others such as this, the Sykes Pickervant, and a nylon strap wrench, and a chain type of oil filter tool. We'll also need a torque wrench so that we can measure the 34 Nm for the sump plug, and some latex gloves because oil is not what you want on your hands. And finally you'll need an oil catch pan suitable for at least 5.2 litres. Step 1 is jack up the car and make safe. So this is the jacking point on the side highlighted in red, and I'm going to use 2 jacks because I need to get a camera underneath the front, though there is actually a single jacking point on the cross member of the front of the Nissan, which is quite useful. But like I say, I'll be using 2, which is somewhat tedious, just to keep going backwards and forwards. Right, I'm going to get those axle stands, because you definitely don't want to go underneath a vehicle like this, or any other vehicle, without making it safe with axle stands. Step 2 is to loosen the oil filler cap. The reason for this is the oil would drain quicker if we undo the cap and let the air in. Step 3, drain the oil using the 14mm socket. So while we're going underneath the Nissan, I'll just show you a photo to show you that there is a cross member with a single jacking point at the front, and there's also the oil sump and the drain plug. So using our 14mm socket, we can loosen that sump plug. There is a copper washer on there as well, so don't lose that. Now I push the plug in as I undo it so that I can then just put it away quickly and all the oil drains away. So give that a bit of time, and then we can pop the plug back in with a new copper washer. And then we can use our torque wrench set to 34 Newton meters and make sure that the sump plug is in nice and tight and at the correct torque. And the new copper washer should seal that. Step 4 is to remove the old oil filter using one of the many tools available. So I'm going to use the Facom, or I favour the Facom, because you just hit it and the jaws snap together and stay in place without falling into the oil. So we can now just remove the filter, quite tight there. Now this is where it gets a little bit messy, or very messy, as a lot of oil is now going to pour everywhere. Ugh, like I say. Give that time to drip a bit. Make sure you've got a container ready. You don't want to drop the oil filter into the oil and splash oil in your face. So, like I say, quite a messy job, that one. Let's get that out. One thing we must ensure with the old oil filter is that the rubber seal came away with it. If you accidentally leave it in place and then put the new filter on, you could double gasket it and cause a massive oil leak when you start running the engine. Step 5 is to install the new oil filter. Nissan say to torque the filter to 18 Newton meters, or once the filter contacts the housing, rotate a further half a turn. So with our new filter, we will add a little bit of oil onto the rubber seal. So you don't need a lot. With a filter like this that's easily accessible and vertically hanging, I would normally actually fill that filter with oil and then screw it into position so that the oil was already in there once you did the first start of the engine. But I've left it empty because I don't wish to drop it and cover my B camera in engine oil. So now the work under the car is done, we can focus on the refilling of the oil. So we can lower the car now back down to the ground. Step 6, if you're unsure of the oil quantity. If you're unsure of the actual quantity of oil for your particular engine, what you can always do is ensure that it's on maximum on the dipstick, and then when you do the draining of the oil, you can measure the oil back out like I am here, and that way you can put exactly the same amount of oil back into the engine. Now Nissan say it's 5.2 litres, which ironically, there's our 5 litres now. So it actually appears to be about 5.5 litres for some reason. Step 7 is refill with clean oil. So here we have our clean oil. So we just pop the cap off, pop that to one side. You probably need a funnel with this because you've got that intercooler on the top that is in the way a little bit. Now normally you'd pour the oil with the container on its side so that it doesn't go glug 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 glug. But I've got to hold the filter as well. Pours a lot better when it's on its side. So there's our 5 litres in, and the manual does say 5.2. So this is another 200 millilitres. So that should be the correct amount of oil according to the manual. And then just pop your cap back on, like so. So we can now start the engine, and we're looking for that oil can light to go out. So it's the lower one in that picture. It's gone out there. So that means the oil filter is now full of oil, which is good. Now when checking the dipstick, we're looking for the oil to be in the hatched area and definitely not too low or over full. If it's over full, it can cause oil frothing, and cause oil starvation in the oil pump. So looking at my dipstick there, it's looking like it's a little bit low. So when checking the dipstick, you do need to withdraw it, wipe it clean, pop it back in, and then take the reading then. You do need to use a clean dipstick. So that should be just about right now. Job done. And don't forget to make a note of the mileometer for your service records. And in my case, that's 126,655 miles. So this is an extra step to check the filter for metal particles. Not advised, as such a high risk of slipping and cutting yourself very badly. So like I say, this is probably definitely not advisable, because once this is cut open, the edge of the filter will be absolutely razor sharp. But as people may have seen, this Nissan I rescued after it had gone diesel runaway. Now, because it went runaway, this is the original oil filter. I would like to just check in there to see what metal particles could be trapped inside, and that will give me some idea as to how bad the diesel runaway was. So it's for that reason I'd like to actually inspect this filter material. But like I say here, I should have been wearing leather gloves here, not latex gloves. They would not have protected me at all had I slipped. So definitely leather gloves should be worn if you were to do this. But anyway, that aside, I'm now going to use some tin snips and cut this open. So there we have a rubber seal at the end, and there is a little spring in there, like so. So I'll get my tin snips now and start cutting. And what we should find at the end is actually a pressure relief valve, so that when the filter gets blocked, there's the pressure relief valve. So if the filter actually gets blocked, oil can still be pumped around, albeit dirty oil. So yeah, there's the spring on it. It actually makes me cringe watching me do this. I've cut myself badly on a exhaust gasket before now, and I'm still feeling the after effects a year later of a numb finger. So it really doesn't bear thinking about cutting yourself on sharp metal. And this metal would obviously be dirty as well. Not nice. But anyway, so it's all open. So now to inspect and see what I can find. So I did find a couple of tiny metal particles in the filter, though I'm not unduly worried, as I have done 1,391 miles since I brought the vehicle back to life. And here's some photographs for reference. So here's the jacking point, and there was the oil sump, the drain plug, and the jacking point. And there's that copper washer that needs replacing. And there's where you've got to check there's no gasket left behind. And that is the gasket on the old filter. And this is the dipstick and how to read it. Thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe. And I'm now also available on Instagram.